Hello there, Mandy here. Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart is not just a podcast. It's also a book, a free online grief group, and a one-on-one private coaching practice. If you are interested in learning more, visit mandykapehart.com to find out how restorative grief can help you heal heart, mind, body, and spirit. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. You are listening to episode 219, titled Nourishing Our Souls with Jennifer Otsuki. What happens when everything you've built, your work, your relationships, even your sense of self, burns down all at once? This week on Restorative Grief, we're exploring that question with chef Jennifer Otsuki. After losing her restaurant in 2020, and soon after her partner and sous-chef, Jennifer began the slow work of returning to herself, not through performance or productivity, but through nourishment. Her new book, Soul Nourished, invites us to rebuild after burnout and grief by coming back to the body, the kitchen, and the sacred act of feeding ourselves with presence. So if you've ever felt emptied out by loss or identity collapse, this conversation is a gentle and grounded reminder that nourishment can be both the language and the pathway toward healing. Hey everyone, welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. I am your host, Mandy, and today we're talking with someone who is a little bit different than our typical guests. We have lots of authors, but we've never had a cookbook author. And when I first heard about Jennifer's work, I was so touched because, as you know, my mom was a chef, and before she died, she taught me as much as she possibly could. So when I found out about Jennifer's work, I was like, immediate yes, we must talk. Jennifer Otsuki has spent nearly 2 decades in professional kitchens, leading teams, creating incredibly beautiful, nourishing meals under intense pressure, if you've ever worked in a kitchen, and learning what it means to feed others and herself well. But in 2020, her restaurant closed and her partner and sous chef passed away soon after. And that left Jennifer with everything kind of falling apart at once. So in the ashes, she rebuilt in a lot of incredibly beautiful ways, including this new book, Soul Nourished, which is so much more than a cookbook. And so I just want to dive in and get into the meat of this conversation. Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Mandy. Oh, what an honor it is to be here and get to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Start with the beginning of becoming a chef. It is hard work and it is no small task to undertake. What brought you into the world of food in the first place?
That's such a great question. So it's funny because it was like this light bulb moment. Like it was like all of a sudden I just knew, and I was in high school or kind of on the brink of finishing up high school, and it just came to me. And I get to dig into this in my cookbook because it's a memoir style cookbook. So I get to kind of share my story alongside recipes, which I'm really thrilled about. Um, but it sparked like that, kind of like I just always knew, but I didn't really know. Even my dad was like, "What? Were you watching infomercials or something?" And I'm like, "No, I really think this is what I want to do." And as I got into it and I began pursuing it, first it was like, "Oh, I decorate cakes," and then I worked in a space that allowed for that. And it became more and more, "Oh, I work at this really intense sushi restaurant and I actually really perform well under pressure. So let me follow that thread." And that's been a lot of the journey is having the privilege to work alongside some really talented folks in the industry.
And that makes the pressure much more tolerable when you have people you can trust and rely upon and go to when you are crumbling a little bit, as we all do under the pressure. So fast forward then to 2020 when everything is shutting down and everyone's losing their livelihoods. Your story, as unique as it is very similar in that regard.
Yes. Yes. 2020 came at the tail end or middle of, I don't even know where it started and stopped, honestly. And I think so many of us have our own version of that story. But my restaurant had closed at the end of 2019. And going into 2020, I found myself back at a restaurant I had previously worked at, but my passion was completely muted. little did I know I was buried in grief, but had no idea. And it would just keep piling on as years to come. Um, and it was like, oh my gosh, what is life? What is passion? What is purpose? What is up? What is down? Because the restaurant that I was previously at, I had poured so much into, and to your point, was surrounded by support and people that felt like family and believed in what we were doing and the food that we were serving. And it was just such a beautiful season. And then it was, it was over like that. And then all of a sudden, 2020 comes, the world shuts down. I'm at this upscale dining restaurant and we're trying to pivot and serve curbside and to go and figure out how to feed families when, previously we were a gastropub that was serving upscale food and doing brunch. And now we're like, okay, how do we capture that and still do right by the community?
Yeah.
So very eye-opening.
Yeah, I mean, that unraveling that we all experienced in 2020 and trying to pivot and keep our livelihoods intact and our neighborhoods and communities intact is one thing. And then you have the added pressure of there's also an unknown entity that is killing people left and right. And there are no resolutions anytime soon. There was so much uncertainty and despair. And that word unraveling keeps coming around to me for your experience just because of how quickly things seemed to spiral, especially around your own identity, right? As a chef, as a person in this industry has created a name for themselves. What was it like following that initial um, pivoting and trying to make sense of what made no sense?
Wow, wow, wow. Such a great question. Because you're hitting the nail on the head. I had at some point been almost knighted Chef Suki, and that became my identity. And that became a survival skill and the persona that I could put on to
Mhm.
be in the trenches every day and to get accolades and to perform and to continue to show up even when it was hard. And there's a lot of brilliance in that and memories and things I wouldn't trade, but there was also burnout and like, oh my gosh, who am I without that when I don't have something to show up for, when everything came to a screeching halt, it was like this circus tent kind of collapsing. Like, okay, I don't have to perform anymore. I don't have to put on a show, but now what?
Yeah.
Now what? And I was, sort of forced with some stillness of having to sit in things that I had never sat in, which thrust me into a beautiful healing journey. And luckily, for the first few years of that, my partner and sous chef and best friend, Andrew, was by my side, which was such a blessing because he was a very independent person and a really unique soul. And he just knew how to navigate the waters and in the strangest way, it's like he almost prepared me for what was to come without knowing. Like we were just side by side, thick as thieves, trying to figure out the world. And then you're like, oh, but wait, there's more unraveling, more thread to pull on. Wait. So
Yeah, it really sounds like the way you experienced grief was helping reshape your relationship to um, just the way you produced and created in the world and the ambition that you probably had as a young chef as well, and that persona, that safety of an identity to sit with becomes very shell like, very much like a mask when more grief piles on, when more things land on our plate. How did how was it working and with your partner and navigating all of that, being so close side by side? That's not most of our experiences with the people that we, you know, are connected with so deeply. We have space from them. And it sounds like the two of you were very much always united.
we were, and it was, oh my gosh, I can't even describe it. Like, thank God. That's the only thing I can say because I just was able to lean on him so much. We leaned on each other. Um, grief gives you a certain lens to look through things. We really, really did lean on each other, but he carried a lot at a time when I was just buried. Um, and and what a blur of a time frame. Um, And then, the contrast of that absence has been a whole nother experience. So it's definitely taught me the depths of love for sure. It's, I can't
Yeah.
say that lightly.
No, it's no small thing to say. And I think that's something until we've experienced a grief like a loss of love, we really don't necessarily notice the absence unless until the weight has been lifted, right? We don't notice the pressure of it or the presence of it until it's absent. And then it feels light, but not in the right way, right? And there was something you said, you mentioned in your work that you felt you'd been starving emotionally, spiritually, and somatically. And I feel I just get the sense that that very much began prior to, but probably deepened so much after losing Andrew.
Yeah, you know how those old wounds just come up and you're forced to sit with all of it. And I think what I that hollow absence after losing him was like, oh, I didn't realize how much space he was taking up.
Mm,
Like I did not realize, wow, okay, now what does it mean to sit with me and be with me and be right here with all that discomfort and nowhere to go? Whoa, what do I even like? What do I want to do? What on earth is anything? You're just trying to figure out so much. And I remember feeling like that Julia Roberts movie where she sits down with like every style of egg and is like, how do I like my eggs? Because Drew would just cook for me. And so I didn't know what I liked. I just liked that he made really delicious meals. And then you're like, okay, when I'm having to choose myself and choose each thing, what do I even want? Um, so that has definitely been a journey, but it started long before. I mean, I would say that um, my chef work at times has been almost like my shadow work because early on I even struggled with food and my relationship with food. And so through my own healing and journey with nourishment and providing that for myself in the way that so easily comes in giving to others, it's like, oh, I'm not the only woman that needs this. And how do I take this pain and turn it into power for so many?
yeah, you so much shifted when you began cooking for yourself and like considering I need to be nourished as well. And I think even getting to that word nourishment is a very long journey for a lot of people. I know when I've used it, they make they're like vitamins. Like I ate some spinach this morning. Is that what you mean? And I'm like, almost. We're so close. There was a in your book you wrote about mindful mirepoix, and I can't remember if I told you this in our correspondence back and forth, but my mom, when she died, left her entirety of her, belongings to my sister and I, but my sister got needed most of it. She was younger and needed a whole household. And I just said, "Can I please have her chef knife?" And so I still have it to this day. And I genuinely have to give myself so much peace and so much calm because we use it every day. But there will be times when I am using it and I just have a moment of slow down and think, who is cutting this with you? Who are you cutting this for? Why are you dicing carrots right now? Why are you prepping beets? Whatever I'm doing, it is such a beautiful moment of inviting a slower pace, which is the complete opposite of kitchen life, right? Deciding to move slowly um, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So it's an interesting thought to get along and think, okay, we're looking for nourishment and it's no longer just for our physical bodies.
Yes, soul nourishment. If grief has taught me anything, it's that you can make sad soup just by how you stir a pot
Yeah.
and how you hold things and the memory, the somatic memory that things hold.
Mhm.
Like picking up Andrew's knife for the first time, like that was, oh my gosh, you're just like really hit with everything at once, is how I felt. In a privileged way. I want that. I want to carry that in my body. That's the ancient wisdom that I think recipes carry if you allow it. And like my grandfather's rolls, they're so simple. They're so simple. I look at the recipe, I'm like, this is not what this man made every Thanksgiving, but it is. And it was his little hands that shaped them, that held the love that he couldn't always speak, but he spoke it through food. And there's so much wisdom in that. And that is real nourishment. It's not in the counting calories or weighing portions, which that's a component that matters, making sure you're getting enough, not too much. Um, but it's in what the food carries that your body remembers.
Yeah, it makes me think of Like Water for Chocolate, one of my very favorite books. If you've not read it, I would be very surprised, but it's all about every chapter has a recipe within the book, and it's a fictional story about a young woman who is so overcome by the circumstances of her life that, she cries, a tear falls into the soup she's making, and when she feeds it to everyone, everyone is overcome by emotion and can't stop crying. Or she prepares a sauce with rose petals that were given to her from this forbidden lover, and they have to hide the roses. So they turn it into a sauce, and everyone is overcome with lust during the meal. And it's just this evocative, incredible. They made it into a movie as well. So I recommend it to people all the time because it is the literal embodiment of how powerful and how meaningful our meals need to be. They cannot be fast food. Like we've undone the, not even the romanticizing, but we've undone the value and the importance and the legacy that can be found in recipes and food with one another. And so hearing of your grandfather's roles, that's exactly what you're bringing along with you, is being nourished by the legacy of this recipe and the experiences connected to it.
Mm, I love that you said legacy. Yes, absolutely. It's like an imprint. It is.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
Mm.
speaking of imprint, talk to me about why you decided I'm going to write this into a cookbook. I'm going to channel this work of my life, of grief, of healing, of integrating all of it, and I'm going to produce a book.
It has been just on my heart for years. And back when I was in restaurants and burning the candle at both ends, I would get asked for recipes all the time. And
Sure.
I've been nudged and encouraged, and people just would snap a picture out of a book going, okay, anytime, anytime. And I just finally said, okay, I'm tired of waiting. I'm ready to tell this story. I'm ready to capture a legacy, to your point. And I think once you see how fast it can go, there's something within me that got really motivated of, okay, I'm tired of waiting. And I'm just so grateful for um just the ability to share um through a different layer of understanding.
Yeah. I love that you actually have written recipes. I remember my mom never had, we don't write recipes down, we write ideas. I put some of this in it. How much did you put in until it tasted good? Like that was how we would cook and still do to this day. And
Yes.
it's one of those, well, it's part of the legacy, right? It's recognizing I'm in this recipe. Yes, I've measured out and said, okay, you need 2 cups of cream for this, or you need 2 pounds of protein to go with it, or it's going to feel imbalanced. We can respect the balance of each plate. But there's something to be said for also then winging it, right? My mom hated baking because you cannot wing it in baking, not really. And it's such a linear thing.
Yes.
And it makes me think a lot about how it throughout your book, you talked about the reverence of the process and feeding yourself with reverence. Talk to me a little more about that.
Yeah, I think in the same way that you give and impart something on food, you also can receive differently. Um, just taking those, it's like mindfulness at its core. Um, I think it's really easy to just kind of fly around and eat something really quickly and not really think about it, whether you're dining out or having fed yourself. When you really sit down, go, wow, how many hands made this possible? How many um, hours did I or minutes did I give to this so that I could feed myself? What a gift to be able to do this. And then there's gratitude in that as well.
Yeah.
It's such a different experience when you receive from a place of heart-centered alignment versus that like rushing around, rushing around. It's the same thing I tell myself with my morning routine. Like sometimes I find myself slapping myself around, going like, okay, let's get going, start the day. And you're like, wait a minute. What if I wash my face? Like it's beautiful. What if I stopped and said thank you for this time to be here? It's a totally different experience.
Well, it's certainly counter to the pressure and the same urgency that disrupts our grieving process too. That decision to slow down and tend to your own skin and to your own needs and honor your own humanity in the process. It's why, we all want quick recipes. How do I make quick pickles? How do I make fast rice? It's all, for the sake of preserving and ensuring people get food across food deserts is good to have canned goods and things like that. Um, but there is something very intimate and important about, well, I'm going to make tomato sauce from scratch and I am going to prepare the tomatoes and remove the skin myself instead of buying canned peeled tomatoes. There's so much intention, I think, behind it. And that's what I found so fascinating and beautiful about your book was the decision to keep it like the blogs from the early 2000s, right? When you would have a recipe that you search on the internet for and you get the whole story in between or beforehand. And I loved those. I know many people struggled because they just wanted the recipe, but I love story and I love knowing how you decided that you were going to prepare this meal for the evening and why this meal and why these people. And I think there's so much um, kindness that you provide for people who are just trying to get by, just trying to live in this world and feed their family and move on. It's an invitation into that space where they can acknowledge their own bodies and their own body's needs and their own breath and the gratitude and the mindfulness and the holistic part of who we are and why we need more than just feeding. We need nourishment.
Yes, yes. And I think like what I see when I host retreats or even working in restaurants, when people gather in the kitchen, which we're meant to do, and they ask questions and get curious, like, why do you do that? Oh, and you see there's intention and reason behind it, not just because I said so or because that's how you do it, but because fresh squeezed or fresh zested citrus is a whole different experience from start to finish. Because nourishing broth actually is nourishing and not because you can buy it in a powder. And again, that gets the job done.
Right.
But what if you made it from scratch and you looked at every carrot and you thought about where it came from? And then at the end of the day, when it had been going for 24 hours, you went, oh my goodness, I made this. And it's water with some veggies in it. Like it's really not,
Yes.
but it's alchemy, it's chemistry, it's something that is made just for you in this moment. And so if you let food be medicine, it's really magical.
I love that. And that keeps me thinking about, I kind of mentioned food deserts a minute ago, but I'm thinking about people who food has urgency to it because it does. I mean, at the time of this recording, we're in the middle of people losing access to food right now. And so it can feel very indulgent. It can feel very stressful trying to ensure that you have food in the house, let alone balanced, colorful, fresh food. What do you hope readers will gain from your cookbook, but also with that same lens of perspective? Like, how do you think they will change their own approach to food for themselves and for their communities?
I meet so many, I host retreats primarily now, and I meet so many women moms, that either run a household or have a family to provide for alongside their career, whatever it is. We're all um doing a lot, and food can sometimes be the last thing we want to give effort to, even though you might want to reverse engineer that sometimes. And my hope is that this cookbook inspires that. But more so, what I want it to inspire is not one more person telling you, oh, you should do this, you should do this, is I'm a human too. I've seen how easy it can be to slip away from good habits. Here's some good habits to help you remember the other things that you already know. And also, here's some tricks because I'm no superhuman. I just know how to cook. And that came from all these people that taught me. And so I want to share that with you so that you can go home feeling inspired instead of burnt out and continue to make one better choice a day or every meal, choose differently in a way that slowly, before you know it, you're like, wow, I'm doing it and I feel better and I don't feel burnt out. And I've got some tricks up my sleeve that feel really nourishing.
Yeah. It's funny. The other day, I am, as you're talking, realizing, oh, that's why I had heartburn, not because everything is crazy and the world is on fire, because I had fried food and I haven't been eating fried food and I don't want to be eating fried food. And it was just a little moment of revelation of, I can eat it, sure. But if I'm aware of what's going somatically on in my body, I'm going to feel the heartburn and know, unfortunately, know more about what's happening in my body if I'm experiencing that too. And so, like, if I want to be able to go on with my day and feel joyful and feel connected and integrated, maybe the quick fried option isn't the best option. And I think that that's a big ask. It's a huge ask for someone who, um, especially when, and I want to kind of transition to talk about like holiday foods too, because you mentioned it earlier when I'm thinking about how to nourish multiple people and balance the workload and balance the parenting and whatever else is we've got going on, it does like still there's a piece of me that calls out to remembering how good it feels to put on headphones and prepare food for my people as a true act of like in this moment this is the one thing I'm going to do instead of trying to transition and cook in all of the transitions to things. I would like to be intentional. And with the holidays all around us and the incredible pressure to like regardless of if you're innovating or if you're doing a traditional meal every year, what would you say for someone who is allowing the pressure to take the focus of the season and of the time with their families?
You know, that's the one thing that my grandpa taught me the most. I will say Thanksgiving was my favorite holiday because he did an incredible job with it. But I never saw him. I never got to be in the kitchen with him, even. I
Mm.
admired from a distance. I admired from the table, going, wow, how did he do this? What's behind the curtain? Because he just wanted to be in the kitchen by himself. It was his place. He wanted to just put his head down and do it. And dang, did he. And at the same time, I've had to kind of info gather in his absence and drum up memories that he didn't impart on me. And to me, the fellowship piece is another component of it. And being together and sharing in that is another component. And so it's really easy um, to get in that place of overwhelm. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I got to do this and I got to do that, and start moving from that place and making choices from that place and reading recipes that feel hard when you can maybe just taste what feels good and try to imagine what might satisfy in this moment rather than going, oh my gosh, I read three blogs and I think this is the right one, but I don't know if it's, sometimes that little minutia can really pile on. And so just trusting that it won't be your last meal. It's okay if it's not perfect, whatever that is. And that the most important thing is just being together and sharing in the goodness and the richness of gratitude and joy and all the things that your food is experiencing.
I love that. It reminds me of you had an anecdote about owning the process and owning the plate in your book about just taking truly just taking ownership over like the thing you are creating, the thing you are now known for, the thing that makes everything feel really like safe and familiar. And I think that that in the context of the holiday season, I'm the person that's like, now let's make something new every year. With the like one or two very rare exceptions. And I know that the years that I have put my headphones on in holidays and just gone through it have been miserable. And the seasons that I have said, you know what? Get over here now, 6-year old, she's 11 now, but like get in here and learn how to do this with me. Here's a knife. You can handle it. You're going to, I don't care what they look like, dice the apples. Like you've got this. And it's going to take me twice as long. And that is okay because the propensity to rush through a meal, even at the holidays, is so strong for whatever reason. And that's something that I don't want to carry into like weeknight meals. Okay, if we need to go a little faster, fine. But like we're supposed to be here restoring our connection with one another and celebrating life. And we're rushing through it, or we're feeling the pressure of getting the turkey right, or, making sure that everybody's food is heated up at the same exact time and presented at the same moment. There's so much circumstance that we almost miss the actual circumstances that we're in.
Mm, such a valuable observation. Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. It's like it becomes about the food and it's not about the food, but it is about the food, but it's about presence with it, not necessarily about perfection or anything like that, but about tasting it together and noting all the senses and experiencing it with every cell of your body and how do we connect on that and um because it can go so fast. I mean, I thought that with my grandpa's Thanksgivings, like, wow, a whole day of effort and then wipe out, done. It's over like that. See you next year. And your heart longs for those moments. So how do we sit and savor that?
Yeah. Yeah. I love the word savor. I gave it to my daughter long ago and said, savor what you have. I'm not giving you 5 popsicles. You have one. Enjoy it. Sit with it. And she will now,
Yeah.
to this day, call herself out and say, I want to savor this. I want to enjoy. I really want to lean into this. And I think that that's such a beautiful like reflection of nourishment, even if it is a Kit Kat that she's nibbling on and savoring. Um, it's become such a practice. And so for you, if nourishment is a practice in your life, not this product, not this destination of like label, I can nourish myself, what helps you keep showing up in that practice?
For me, it's the small moments. I find that little habits and little routines peppered throughout my day feel really good. It feels anchoring. So sometimes it is morning routine is really powerful for me. So just connecting with myself through mirror work, breath work in the morning, giving intentionality to my face washing, savoring, to your point, a tea or a coffee or whatever drink I decide to treat myself to that day and how I start my day and just carrying that into the day because it's so easy to hit the ground running and be on to the next thing. And now I'm behind and I'm late, I'm late, I'm late, and always rushing. Um, but I really just try to find these moments of pause and tapping into the practices I know anchor me.
I love it because you very barely mentioned even consumption of anything in that moment. I think that's the huge message here is that nourishment is not just the food and the vitamins that we consume. It is the presence and the act of how we move toward ourselves through the daily onslaught of things that take from us. How are we restoring what's been taken, even if it's little, taking our time, taking our attention? How are we regenerating that attention toward ourselves in a way that prepares us to still show up and prepares us to go back toward those moments because it's not an exchange of lack, it's an exchange of joy, right? We're in those relationships and places that take from us on purpose most of the time. So how can we partner? How can we be intentional with it? How can we let ourselves be fed and feed others and ensure that we're returning to ourselves when we need to through the process of it? Mm.
In every moment.
Every moment.
Return to yourself.
Jennifer, your book Soul Nourished is available for pre-order right now. Where else can
Yes.
people find you if they're interested in hearing about your retreats and more of what you offer?
You can find me on at my website for www.fourdimensionswellness.com. I have my retreat page on there. My cookbook pre-sale packages are live on there as well. And you can also meet with me. I call it my seat at the table, sort of a little discovery call for anyone who's just looking to connect. and explore options and offerings.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And listeners, I highly recommend you take a seat at Jennifer's table. I think what you will gain from it is much more than a simple insight about how to slice your onions well. Fun fact, when I learned there was a better way to slice them if you want them sweeter versus if you want them less sweet, I was like, okay, this is why we need very intelligent food scientists around us, because if I could have been cutting these raw better the whole time, but I just feel like you probably have pieces of wisdom that are so much more intentional and deeper than how to cut an onion. So thank you for being here and sharing your story and for writing your book. I know it was a deep labor of love, and I'm so grateful to share this space with you to celebrate it.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for listening to episode 219 of Restorative Grief. What I love about Jennifer's story is how honest and embodied it is, that healing didn't arrive through striving, but through stillness, breath, and the smallest acts of self-care. This conversation is a reminder that when life falls apart, rebuilding doesn't begin in the mind, but in the body, in the kitchen, and in the quiet rhythms of nourishment. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who you know is walking through their own unraveling. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast, I am so very grateful that you're here. Please be sure to subscribe and leave a review so I can hear how we're doing and what kind of episodes would be helpful for you in the future. Thank you, as always, to my patrons. You are the reason this work can continue and that I can take care of myself and my own needs while providing this wonderfully important work for the people in care deserts all over our country and even internationally. That's right, we have international listeners, people. If you are unsure about what your next steps are, please feel free to check out the show notes and decide if you want to become a patron of the show or if you need some more free resources. All of it can be found at mandykapehart.com, and you can learn more about Jennifer and her book Soul Nourished at 4dimensionswellness.com. That's it for me today, but as always, before we go, one last thing. Please remember, the only solution for grief is to do the work of grieving. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.